everybody, and welcome back to the Cupcake Jemma channel with me, Sally, and welcome to the Crumbs and Doilies store here in Soho. Now, I have got a great recipe for you guys, but before we get started, I just wanted to say a massive hello from Jemma. She's at home keeping safe with her baby Eden, but she really wanted to say hi to you guys, and she misses you, and she's loving watching all the recipes and seeing all your bakes over on Instagram. Anyway, let's crack on with this video because today we are going to be making Madeleines, and they are the most delicious, simple little treat. They're French, which instantly means they're amazing because the French know what they're talking about when it comes to baking. And they are going to be baked in this little tin here. They're so simple. They're little spongy, cakey, heavenly bites. Some people think they're a biscuit, but they're not. They're absolutely, definitely cake. They're really quick to make. And then the best thing is that they take about 7 minutes in the oven, and then you can eat them warm, and you can just keep on piling them into your mouth like I am going to do once we have baked them. So anyway, let's get this batter whipped up. So we're going to start with 100 grams of caster sugar or granulated sugar. Now I'm going to be doing it in my stand mixer, but you can very, very easily do this by hand just with a regular whisk. So into my sugar, I'm going to be adding 2 eggs, and we're going to whip them up for about kind of 3 to 4 minutes. It might take a little bit longer if you're doing it by hand, but what you want to look for is them to go lovely and thick and pale and kind of frothy, and I will show you what that needs to look like. So this is what I mean by pale and frothy. And you see in there? And that is just gonna add a little bit of kind of lightness to our sponge. So into this, we're gonna add a few flavors now, starting with some honey. So I'm gonna add about 1.5 teaspoons of honey. And now this isn't essential. Like if you don't have honey in your cupboard, don't worry. It's just that the honey kind of adds an extra sort of warmth to your flavor. It rounds off the sweetness, and it doesn't taste like honey, but I highly, highly recommend using it. And we're also gonna add some vanilla, of course. So about 1/2 teaspoon I'm gonna go with of this Cupcake Jemma vanilla, which is what we use in the bakery, and it's so delicious. And then lastly, I'm gonna add a bit of lemon zest. So just about half a lemon zest in there, just to add a little bit of a zing to our Madeleines, and mix that through. And then we're gonna add our dry ingredients. So we're gonna start with some flour. We've got 115 grams of flour, which I'm gonna put through a sieve, so all-purpose or plain flour. So just sift that in. I always like to sift things like this because it just kind of helps create air and fluffiness in these, and these are like the ultimate fluffy little sponges. And then we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, so that's where we're going to get our lift from, and a small pinch of salt. Of course, guys, you know about salt. Hopefully you know about salt. It really draws out all of those flavors. And now we're just going to mix this through, and I'm going to just do it by hand, to be honest. We just want to fold it all together. And once the flour is thoroughly combined and there aren't any lumps in there, we can add our final ingredient, which is some melted butter. So melted and cool, just leave it to cool down for a few minutes before you add it, and it's 115 grams. I'm just going to add a little bit at a time and stir it well in between each addition. And that is our batter made. You can see it's lovely and smooth. It kind of looks a little bit fluffy, but now what we're going to do is pop these into the fridge for a couple of reasons. The first is that we want to give it time for the flavors to all develop, but secondly, what we need to do is we need to bake this batter from cold. It's going to go into a hot oven, and that is going to help get the Madeline signature hump. So we're going to cover this with some cling film. We're going to put it in for a minimum of 45 minutes, but a maximum of however long you like, however long you can bear to leave it in the fridge for. I made some the other weekend, and I left some batter in the fridge overnight, and I baked some for breakfast, and I had a little cup of coffee, and it was absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend doing that. So let's put this in the fridge, and I'll see you in about 45 minutes. All right, so once your batter is out of the fridge, just give it a quick stir just to kind of bring it all back together, and then we can get our pan prepared. So you are going to need a Madeleine pan for this, but if you don't have one, don't fear. If you have a cupcake pan, I would just use a cupcake pan and sort of half fill them. They obviously won't look like Madeleines, but they'll still taste absolutely delicious. But if you do have this or the cupcake pan, we need to grease it, and we're going to do that with butter, obviously, because these are French, remember, and the French like their butter. So unsalted, of course. And I've just got a pastry brush here and some melted butter, and I'm going to lightly grease each of these shells. And now we can get our batter into the pan, and if you want to do this with a piping bag, then go ahead. It's kind of easier to see if you've got the same quantity in each Madeleine, but I'm going to do mine with teaspoons and show you how much to use. So just a regular kind of kitchen teaspoon, and I've got a nice kind of rounded blob, a rounded teaspoon as they call it. I'm just going to pop one of those inside each shell, and you can sort of gently push it around. You don't need to completely smooth it off, but just give it a little head start. Now they are ready for the oven, and you'll probably read a lot about Madeleines, about how to bake them, and I've done so many tests, trust me, and all of like starting the oven high and then turning it off and then turning it back on, and I did a million different tests, and the one that came out the best was the one where you just put it in. So I've got my oven preheated to 190 degrees C, which is fan assisted, and we're going to put these in for about 7 minutes. They're going to puff up, they're going to get their lovely little hump, and they're going to go gorgeous and golden and crispy. So let's have a look and see what happens. Oh, they smell so good, and they look perfect. But I know that if you've never seen a Madeleine before, you're probably thinking that this looks a little bit weird. And you know, sometimes if you bake a cupcake and it does this, then it probably means you've done it wrong. But this is what these are supposed to do. This is their signature little hump, and they're gonna come out really, really easily. So we're gonna take them all out now. Actually, I'm just gonna turn this upside down. Ready? Go. And now that is basically it, guys. That is your Madeleine. But, I mean, you can do all sorts with them. You can just eat them as they are, which is absolutely fine. You could sprinkle them with icing sugar, or you could dip them in some chocolate and sprinkle them in nuts. But what I like to do, and what I think you should give it a go, is to make a little lemon drizzle, and we're just gonna drench them, and it's just gonna be so good. So we're just gonna make that whilst these are cooling down a little bit. So I've got some icing sugar in here, about 1.5 tablespoons, and I'm gonna start with a squeeze of lemon juice. It's like a lemon drizzle cake, which is like probably one of my favorite cakes ever. And then we're gonna top it up with water, because we want this to be fairly thin. And just give it a little whisk together. So it doesn't look like much, just kind of like a clear liquid, but it is gonna make these taste even better than they already are. So this is best to do when they're warm. So once you can kind of handle them, pick one up and just give it a coating in this. Kind of makes them go a little bit shiny as well. And then we're just gonna leave them to kind of drip off. And then we're gonna eat them when they're warm, because that is how Madeleine is served best. So first of all, let's have a little look inside, because they are the ultimate fluffy little fluffy treats. I think they look adorable. They smell incredible. That is so good. It's so light. It's so fluffy. And there is absolutely no need for any icing or anything. The lemon drizzle as well Like, it's so lovely with it, and it's going to keep it really, really moist as well. But if you don't want to do that and you just leave them, they'll have a nice little kind of crispy outside edge as well. So whatever you do with them, they're going to be amazing. And also eat them for breakfast, because that was probably one of the best things I've ever done. So have fun making these. And if you don't have the Madeleine tin, don't worry, just do it in a cupcake tin, because you've got to have a go at these. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back next week with another recipe for you guys. In the meantime, do head over to cupcakejemma.com to get all your bake at home kits and your merch, like these oven gloves. I mean, you can tell how much we've used these. They've probably never been washed, but they're so good. And obviously the tea towel and the apron to match it as well. There's loads of fun stuff over there, so go and have a little look, and we'll see you next week. So ready? How many do you think I can do? Like 3 at once? I'm not gonna do it, I'm not gonna.